Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. We are excited to be here today with Docframe. My name is Art with No Code Devs. We also have Paul on the line with No Code Devs, and then we have Garrick and Peter from Docframe. Best way I think that we can describe Docframe, and I'll let them do a better job of it, but my understanding of it is it's a it's an Airtable that's HIPAA compliant plus a lot more. I think there's a lot more to it than that, and that's an oversimplification. But we're excited to see this product. It has really, I think, far-reaching implications for agencies, developers, makers, and people in the space that need this sort of extra level of security and compliance. So, really excited to see it here today. And see this presentation. One thing I will say, which I always say, is that this session is being recorded. So if you need to replay it at any point, or you have to jump off early, of course we hope you stay to the end. But if you need to replay it at any point in time, it is being recorded, and we will provide a recording within a few days of this session ending. So fear not, we will send it to you, and you can have a recording of this event. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Garrett, I believe, who's going to go ahead and get started, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Art, and thanks everyone for attending the webinar. So just quick agenda. I'm going to power through like 5 or 6 slides, then we're going to actually get in the good stuff, show you the a demonstration of Docframe, and then we'll definitely have some time for Q&A at the end. So just jumping into it, what is Docframe? Docframe is a HIPAA compliant dynamic workspace built for managing sensitive information. The big problem we're trying to solve is, a while back, we noticed that in the kind of like no code stack of tools out there, there was a real lack of kind of like a HIPAA compliant database layer in the no code space, which made it extremely difficult for no code developers to build any kind of application that relates to kind of like the medical field, biotech. Anytime you're collecting personal health information, it was almost a no-go with the current tech stack. So by providing this HIPAA compliant dynamic workspace, we're trying to make it easier for folks to build custom applications in kind of the medical biotech fields. And so how are we doing that? There's a unique set of features that we're bringing to the table that really empower these industries. The first one, of course, is the fact that we're a HIPAA compliant database. So we've invested a lot in encryption, been through the ringer with penetration testing and do sign BAs. So we do have that HIPAA compliant database. The next big part here is we have these different views: spreadsheet, form, and portal views, combined with role-based access controls, which really allow us to define who can access what information to even the individual cell level. And that's really important for HIPAA compliant applications, because the basic principle of HIPAA compliance is folks should only have access to information on an as needed basis. So with these role-based access controls and views, that is now possible. The next one is a REST API. So like I mentioned, we're functioning largely as the database layer, but we have the ability to integrate with other no-code tools, front ends and automations, so you can tie things together. And then last but not least is transactional data validation. So within our database, we can define different field types, and this will ensure that when you're entering information into our database, that it's always accurate and there's not really going to be a lot of errors. So with these features combined, these are the use cases that we're empowering. So we've had a lot of conversations with folks trying to build out things like patient portals, simple clinics, LIMS, really any application in sort of the biotech medical space is possible. But we believe now with these unique set of features, we're now empowering a whole new industries to leverage the power of no code. So that's the gist on the PowerPoint. From there, we can hand it over to Peter for the demonstration, and I'll do the stop share here now.
Yes, all right, cool. So this is a very, very simple demo of Docframe. Essentially, it's what we call our simple clinic. It's not a super realistic example. A realistic example would probably take multiple hours for us to go through. But this just gives you a small taste of how you can leverage Docframe's table, column, and row level security features in order to build a HIPAA compliant data management system. So here I have like 100 or so fake patients, and I've got 2 physicians assigned to them, Dr. Jackie and Dr. Lee. And I can break them out and see that they each have the exact same number of fake patients. And in this screen here, I'm logged in as Dr. Lee. In this screen here, I'm logged in as Dr. Jackie. And right now, everyone has access to all of the patients. And so in some situations, this may be HIPAA compliant, but in those situations, it might not. And so with Docframe, we are essentially allow you to filter access at the table, column, and row level by diving into roles. And so when you click on the share button, you have the ability to dive into a specific role, and you can fine tune access to each table here. So right now we've got 3 tables, appointments, appointment types, and patients. None of these tables are related together yet. I'll do that later in the demo. But for right now, I'll just focus on the patients table, where we've got some emails and phone numbers and the assigned physician, which is effectively a logged in user. So you'll see the other collaborators in our organization here to pick from to assign to this physician field here. And so when you dive into the role, you can toggle like full access or no access to a particular table, very simple. Or you can click on this partial access button, which will then expose the table, column, and row level permission options. So you could go in here and say they can only read all of the patient data, or you could say they can view, create, but not delete any of the patient records, and that they can view, create, and edit any patient records that satisfy a particular condition. So for example, you could say, something silly like the email contains fake, right? Which were all of the email addresses that I had in there. And you could also do something more interesting, like say the physician is equal to Dr. Jackie, right? And so if Dr. Jackie or Dr. Lee were to log in and refresh their page, then all of the patients would be filtered to just Dr. Jackie with a static reference to Dr. Jackie. But you can also use dynamic references. So at Docframe, it's super simple. You just click on this toggle to flip it over to current. And then now all of a sudden, the patient records will be filtered such that each physician can only see the patients that are assigned to them in this physician column you see back here. So if I go ahead and save that off and then toggle over to Dr. Jackie, which notice Dr. Jackie can see all of Dr. Lee's patients. You just go ahead and hit the refresh button and Docframe loads up the data. And now I can only see Dr. Jackie's patients. And I go over to Dr. Lee. And now I can only see Dr. Lee's patients from the perspective of Dr. Lee. And you could even do something like, if you want to be more realistic about this, you probably want to mark the physician field as read-only so that they don't accidentally revoke access to a particular patient. And so that's your basic table, column, and row level permissions applied to a single table, patient table. Now, this is not a particularly compelling data set. Obviously, it's a lot of fake data. We're not going to, show a bunch of patient data on a webinar. But just to illustrate the capabilities of Docframe, you can add special columns, like you can add a drop-down, like if you say want to have gender, for example, you could put in male, female, or no preference, for example. Or you can put in, a file, for example. So you could say a patient chart. This probably wouldn't make sense to put against the patient there, but just to illustrate that capability. You also have the ability to do something really interesting with Docframe in the validation front. So you could go in here, customize a field and mark it as unique. So essentially now, all of these patient fields are unique, such that if I try to change this name, it's going to go, hey, we already have that name, right? And Docframe has some other nice validation capabilities, like if you try to put in something that's not an email into the email field, it'll yell at you. And even if you put in a fake phone number, it'll yell at you. Our customers actually really love this feature. We've caught some bad phone numbers from some bad data sources in the past with that great feature. Another really interesting feature that Docframe brings to the table that other tools have is the ability to create relationships between tables and then leverage them in your filters. So if I hop over to this appointments table here, super simple, just have a bunch of first appointments here. I can go in and create a related link to the patient, right? And so now I can go in here and say, this was fake patient 31, this was fake patient 32, this was fake patient blah, right? And so now I've got these connections with these different patients here, these related links. And so I can leverage those related links in lookups, right? So I can go in here and say, give me this patient's physician, right? And so now I'm saying, okay, fake patient has Dr. Jackie, fake patient has 32 has Dr. Lee, and fake patient 49 has Dr. Jackie. That's great. And I can go ahead and save that off and maybe give this view a more interesting name. But just for the sake of this demo, I'm going to pull that out and illustrate how you can also use Docframe's related links feature in your filters. So you can go in here and you can say, give me all of the appointments where the patient's physician is Dr. Jackie, right? So then it pulls up those two, right? And then you can also, say like Dr. Lee, for example, right? And you could get more and more advanced with your filters. We have the ability to do essentially like nested filtering and have conditional logic similar to what coders would write. And it's this nice simple UI. And all of this has a declarative API that you can hit through our REST API access. But where Docframe gets really interesting is if I hop back into the roles, you can drill into this physician role. And you could say, all right, let's give the physicians access to some more data. Let's give them access to all of the appointment types because the appointment type data is not sensitive. And then let's give them access to conditional access to the appointments such that the physician can only see the appointments that are associated with the patient that they're assigned. So I can go in here and then I can click on this expand lookup fields button like we were using in the filters prior. And then I can click on this physician. And so right now you're looking at a filter that says, give me all of the appointments where the physician is equal to blank, but you can just toggle that over to current like I am doing down here. And then if I save this off and hop back over to one of our physician portal views over here that we have set up, now I see the appointment types. I can see all the appointment types. I can even see these forms that we have here. So I'm gonna download that form. It's not a real form. And then I can hop over to these appointments. And then as Dr. Jackie, I only see these appointments and I can create new appointments. And then if I hop back in as Dr. Lee, then I will only see the appointments that are associated with patients that are assigned to Dr. Lee. And so if I go back in here as my administrator user, Mr. Fancy Cat over here, and I go ahead and like let's say associate some more patient records with these appointments. And again, this is not like a super quote realistic example, but I hope it's illustrating Docframe's capabilities in a really clear and concise way. But as I go ahead and update those bits of information, side note is that all of the change history is tracked and you can view that there. But if I were to go hop in again as one of these other physicians, I will see more of the appointments that are associated with them. And so Docframe essentially allows you to create these rule sets that feel a lot like a report or a view in some other products, but it is essentially a conditional access rule set that can be applied dynamically as you change your data. And so you can build some very simple examples like this out. But by leveraging Docframe's custom field types, validation, and related links, and integrating all of that in with our role-based access control that has the filter-based row-level access, you can build highly advanced and compliant systems without having to touch one line of code. And I hope I'm not running too much on time here, but we do have a really cool new feature that is in private beta called the portal view. We're also coming out with a form view very soon. But essentially, the idea with these alternate views is right now you're looking at Docframe's standard view, which is a spreadsheet view. But the spreadsheet view is not going to be useful for other personas, like a patient, for example. And so with Docframe, you can essentially go ahead and create like a window into your data that leverages the same security and permissions features that Docframe brings to the table through the roles, and essentially give you like a tiny slice of access with a specific targeted UI that is more useful and usable for that persona. So I could go in here and say, like, just create like a patient portal. I could have a description here, but I'm gonna leave that blank just for the sake of time. And I can drill into the patient records, and let's say I'm fake patient 31, and I can go in here and I can change my information. And then essentially you can go into this system and you can use the same exact access control logic that you use in roles, but have it hyper targeted to a specific portal view. And then you can go ahead and publish this portal view. Right now it's set as an admin portal, but I can make it invite only, or I can make a sort of open portal that has a special sign-in link. And then I can go ahead and open that up and test it out as an administrator and see what the portal would look like. You could go ahead and like open it up in other users and see what the portal would look like from their perspective. I'm not going to do that for the sake of time, but sort of the whole idea is with Docframe's other views is that you can, from an administrative perspective or from the perspective of internal employees, you can work with the spreadsheet view, but for, say, patients or customers or clients or consulting groups that you're partnering with, where you want to share a specific slice of data and you don't want them, and they don't want to have the ability to like slice and dice it in the way that you can with the spreadsheet, that's where you can use something like a patient portal or the portal builder, the portal viewer. There's lots more that I'd like to go through, but I think I'm getting pretty close on time. Garrett, do you have Mike?
Yeah, I got Mike. Mike. Cool. Yeah, so that's a high level demonstration. There are a few questions here. I'll go through.
So you have to go through the Q&A?
Yeah, if now's a good time.
Stop sharing.
Cool. The next question I think was from James. Can this connect to voice apps like TrueReply or VoiceFlow to collect patient information via voice? We haven't personally looked into those, James, but if you want to schedule a meeting with us, we could go look into it and see if that's possible. I think the big part on their end is I'm curious on their level of HIPAA compliance to build a true end-to-end, HIPAA compliant application. But it's certainly possible, and probably just is going to require some additional discovery to figure out like what's possible there. Gary, I think, yeah, what front ends are people using with your databases? Again, the big thing is making sure that if you're trying to build a whole end-to-end HIPAA compliant application, ensuring that all parts are HIPAA compliant is going to be important. The company that we have the biggest or the tightest relationship right now with front end, building out front end, is going to be Thunkable, thunkable.com. I think, yeah, so I think this is a question at the end of the session, how to add a doctor, and there's some more information here. I think he's just maybe asking if time allows the process of creating a role.
Well, to add, so the way you'd add a physician to this particular demo is that they would be a user that you would invite. And And there's a couple different ways that you could model this. You could have like a physician's table that you create a user field on and mark that user field as unique. That's a pretty common pattern that we see. So you have a sort of one-to-one relationship between the physician table record and the physician user attribute or field. And essentially you would have to invite that physician into your Docframe organization and ensure that the access control policy that I was demonstrating before is configured properly, and that all of the data is assigned to that physician according to your conditional access policy.
Great. James, thanks for loving the UI. So Steve, is this marketed directly to healthcare-oriented agencies or more towards no-code agencies with healthcare-oriented clients? Such a great question. In our experience, it's been a little bit of both. I think right now, to be frank, it's the no-code enthusiasts that are building out applications for healthcare clients is where we're having a lot more conversations. We're not having any conversations yet with like a clinical laboratory scientist directly and working for Kaiser or something like that. But we've been working with a lot of no-code teams that have healthcare clients to help build these out so far. But it's
the
not.
Folks that we're talking with that aren't in the no-code community are mostly in. So Garrett and I are based in San Diego, and we've got a network in biotech down here. And so those are all the folks that aren't sort of no coders and don't see the no code vision. But yeah, there is a little bit of like, hey, this no code is a big thing. It's going to be the next big thing on how you build enterprise software. And so you sort of have to train them up. But folks that are in the no code community immediately get it.
Right. Next question, I think it was in regards to the trial. So yeah, just as a heads up right now, folks, if you go on our website, we don't it's not like Airtable where you just get logged in. We just want to sit down and learn a little bit about the use case. And it's also important for us to do that approach to stay HIPAA compliant at our scale. So yeah, just go on our website and hit request access, and I'll be shooting you an email within 30 seconds so we can have a conversation scheduled.
So Eddie asked about SOC 2, or sorry, Garrett, do you have like an order for these? A lot of them are coming in.
Yeah, I'm slowly coming down here.
Yeah, let's try to be fair with everybody.
Okay. Sure. Do you want to handle that then, Peter?
Okay, so there's some technical stuff that's getting me jazzed up. So I see something about HL7. I have cooked up like an HL7 demo. Garrett, if you want to like set up a meeting with us, I could walk you through how to do it. It's intense to get like the full like schema together, but it's totally possible. And then SOC 2 compliance, we are working with Vansa on doing that hopefully within the next couple of quarters, hopefully sooner rather than later. Right now we offer HIPAA compliance and we do a self-assessment. Let's see, any way to use our own server for your database. So, too sensitive data, web pages may not go for public. Interesting. So, I'm not quite, yeah, Beverly, maybe we should try to talk offline. I'm not exactly sure what your question is. Docframe currently does not offer any self-hosting, if that's your question. So, some no-code tools like Retool offers like a self-hosted option. That's on our long-term roadmap. But yeah, we won't be offering self-hosting in the short term. But if your question is sort of another way to interpret that, which is like, can your server talk to our servers and exchange data in a HIPAA compliant way? And the answer to that question is yes. We have essentially like we can give you an API token and exchange in a compliant way over that token. Everything's, like I said before, encrypted over the wire and encrypted at rest. But once the data is received and on your server's end, then it would be up to you to stay compliant, right? So if you took some patient data from our servers and then went and publish it on Twitter or something, that would be your bad. Okay. Thoughts on using Docframe, HIPAA compliant forms with Docframe? We actually were just talking about that with Art, and so yeah, hopefully keep your eyes and ears open. Yeah, I don't think there's much else to say there, but we are like Garrett said, like we think of ourselves as a database layer. So we focused a lot on the security and the API, and we are looking for partners to build front ends with. And yeah, we hope to work with lots.
Another question I saw is, can you embed your portals anywhere in front end builders like Webflow, for instance?
Well, Webflow is an interesting question because I believe Webflow is not HIPAA compliant. Embedding the portals, it's not something we've done. But it perhaps we should talk offline. So I'm going to give like a tentative no to that, but it's not necessarily off the table. But we haven't done it before, essentially. Cool.
I know there are a lot of questions, Garrett and Peter. We have a few more minutes. I'm not sure if we got to all of them, but Garrett, did you see any that slipped through the cracks? There were quite a number here.
Yeah.
This is great.
Oh, there was a question about, are there scheduling features in Docframe where physicians, clinicians can see upcoming appointments, or can it integrate with the scheduling tool?
So yes, you've got like a basic date field. It just depends on like sort of the extent of what sort of scheduling features do you want. I mean, do we have like Calendly level scheduling features? No. But we do have support for date features, and yeah, I guess perhaps we would want to talk offline a little bit more on what exact scheduling features you want, and then could we integrate with the scheduling tool? Most definitely, yeah, most definitely. We have a client using Zapier for non-HIPAA compliant data, essentially for non-patient data, and like we mentioned before, we're working on trying to integrate with lots of other partners.
Great. I think I'm trying to pick through. Can you show the API endpoints for various tables?
Yeah. So Eddie, the API schema is. Yeah, I don't know if I want to dive into something so technical. Maybe Eddie, we should talk about this afterwards. But each table doesn't necessarily have its own endpoint per se. It's sort of a polymorphic design. But yeah, like we should probably talk offline about that.
Cool. So I'm picking through the rest. I think we've gotten through the bulk of them.
One thing I should call out about Zapier is that it's still a private integration. You're not going to find us publicly listed there. That's essentially so that we can we give access to Zapier on a customer by customer basis right now. Like Garrett mentioned, we don't offer free trials yet because we're young. We would like to eventually get to that point. But yeah, while we're sort of growing carefully and moving slow and not breaking things, we are doling out access to our Zapier integration on a case-by-case basis.
Awesome.
Hey, looking forward to talking with you, Steve.
And James, yeah.
James, this is great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, cool. I mean, if there aren't any more questions, I think that's the gist of it. You can find us at docframe.com, and that it'll read, just so you know, to redirect to docframe.cloud right now, but docframe.com works.
Yeah, we got a Christmas present.
Yeah.
Our negotiation for docframe.com was successful over Christmas. We're going to be moving to it at some point. I'm sure if any engineers know, DNS is a little bit of a pain. But yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks so much for your time, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. If you have any questions, just you know where to find them. You can also reach out to us. We will again be sending and recording this out to everyone who registered. So you'll have a copy of this if you want to replay it or, dive into any of the details a little bit more, pause it, that kind of thing. So thanks so much, guys, for your time. I appreciate hearing about Docframe. It's pretty cool.